We head to the phone. GOP political strategist. It's Matt Mackowiak. Matt, good morning. How are you?
Chad, good morning. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for joining us today. Let's start off taking a look at the national scene. I had Senator Cornyn on my show last week, and he said, hey, by the end of July, we're going to have health care wrapped up here in the Senate. We're going to have a health care bill. Not everyone agrees with Senator Cornyn. Not all of his colleagues there in the Senate agree. And today there's some more headlines about how the GOP is running out of time for legislative achievements. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and I think that the language here matters a lot. I mean, first of all, I would tend to give Senator Cornyn the benefit of the doubt as the Senate Majority Whip. I mean, he's pretty aware where the votes are, what the schedule is, what the plan is. So I think you have to really take his words, with a lot of respect. That said, I mean, there have been different senators saying different things. It's pretty clear that there's no individual bill right now, and if there were one, there's not even a plan at this point in the Senate that could get the 50 Republican Senate votes that it would require so that the vice president could break the tie to get 51 votes to move it out of the Senate. My guess is they have, 45, 46, 47, and they're just trying to get to the end in terms of the product. But I think what is clear is that they're likely to hold some type of vote on some type of vehicle before the end of July. I think that is becoming the consensus view. And so whether that's a full repeal, whether that's the House bill, whether that's a new Senate bill, I think remains to be seen exactly how that gets worked out. But obviously we've got, about 2 months, maybe a little less at this point, for them to get one legislative vehicle together. And so I think you're going to see major movement here in the next 6 weeks behind that. I mean, I think Senate Republicans know that they've got to have a vote on Obamacare before they go back home in August. They're going to really hear it from their voters and from their base. And so, the legislative focus on health care has now moved to the Senate. They've been working on this for some time, but they've really got to start producing. And I think that they do know they need to hold a vote, and I think they probably will, probably in late July.
When the Senate passes their version, and I think the conventional wisdom is it's going to look different than the House version.
Yep.
How much pressure is going to be on the two, the House and the Senate, to get together and get something passed before 2018? Because it seems like to me you've got to have something done by 2018, because during election season, do you really want to campaign on the health care bill?
Yeah, that's a big question, and particularly since they're using reconciliation, they can do it without Democratic votes, and so they really do need to produce. Now, whether you can find one legislative vehicle that can get through both houses, I think is a real question. If my memory serves, the House bill passed by 2 votes. I think they needed 216, and they got 217, if I remember correctly. That's going to be a real question. My guess is the Senate is going to want to jam the House. They're going to want to say, our vote. My guess is that the Senate bill will pass with exactly 50 votes plus the vice president, or maybe one more, but no more than that. And so, if House, if they go to conference and the bill changes fundamentally, can that bill then get through both houses? I think that's a big question. But you're right. I mean, the Republican base, there's a real risk here, Chad, that the midterm elections could be a worst-case scenario. A worst-case scenario for the midterms would be the following. Trump voters don't turn out because Trump's not on the ballot. Mainstream sort of Republican voters don't turn out because the Republican Congress didn't produce much of consequence. And Democrats turn out because they're motivated to try to deal to Trump a defeat. And that is a worst-case scenario that is a semi-plausible scenario at this point. I don't think it'll ultimately be that way, but health care is a big part of that. Republicans ran on repealing and replacing Obamacare. They've got to produce. Democrats didn't have trouble producing when they had the White House, the House, and the Senate. But so far, we've had some real trouble up in Washington the first, 4.5, 5 months of the Trump presidency.
Yeah, definitely. This week, James Comey is expected to testify. I thought it was interesting. Ari Fleischer, he just sent out a tweet a few moments ago where his big prediction was that Comey would come out and say, basically, Trump's actions were, it was, unlikely. It was, something that, they really don't see a lot, but nothing that was illegal. What happens if Comey comes out this week and there is no bombshell? And then what happens if Comey comes out and says, yeah, I absolutely felt pressure? I felt pressure to end the investigation. Trump's a bad guy. There's something going on. Everyone needs to watch out for this guy. I mean, what happens in those two scenarios?
Yeah, I mean, it's an understatement to say that there's a lot riding on this testimony. Comey is a credible witness, even though he had, significant detractors on both sides of the aisle when Trump decided to fire him. He is seen as an independent voice. He's obviously credible. And given that he has contemporaneous notes in the form of memos from many of these calls and meetings he had, he's seen as having real evidence. And so I think what's going to happen is he's not going to testify about the investigation itself. He's going to testify about meetings that he had with the president, what the president said, what he thought that meant, those kinds of details. So those are things he can testify to. But I think Ari Fleischer may be right. This may end up being sort of Trump was doing things that were inappropriate, but not things that were illegal. I mean, that is the question that Democrats are having a lot of trouble answering right now. What is the legal statute that Trump violated as it relates to the Russia probe? I mean, that's a big problem for the Democrats right now. Now, we don't know what the investigation has in terms of evidence, but, quote, collusion is not illegal. Alan Dershowitz told me that, the Harvard law professor, longtime defense attorney, told me that on my podcast a couple of weeks ago. He doesn't see a criminal statute that the Trump team may have violated. He thinks a lot of the things that have been reported are inappropriate, maybe unprecedented, but not illegal. And that is really, I think, the question for Democrats right now. They've set this up in such a way, Chad, that they want to be able to say that whatever comes out of the hearing and whatever comes out of the investigation, quote, proves collusion. Well, that's their version of success, but really they're going to need something more than that, I think, to ultimately get the kind of result they want. Mm-hmm. But obviously, the Comey testimony is hugely significant. My guess is it probably is in that middle range where it's not a win for the White House, but it's not a complete win for Democrats either. He probably just says he was a little bit uncomfortable. Trump said some things that I thought were inappropriate, but that saying things that are inappropriate is not illegal.
Yeah, that in itself may actually be a win for the White House. Real quick, what are your thoughts? Are we going to see a special session here in the state of Texas?
It's a great question, and I think really I'm not even sure the governor's office knows yet. They said that they expected to make an announcement last week. They let word get out Friday that they would not be making an announcement before the end of the week or over the weekend. So I think that based on legislators I've talked to, it seems like there's more and more momentum for him not calling a special session at all, or just simply calling one for a couple of days that'll last a couple of days to fix the technical sunset issue. But look, ultimately, the longer he waits, the less pressure there is probably to call one. And so, we'll see what happens. This may be a cooling off period. Maybe the governor wants to get through the veto period. Maybe he's trying to see if there's a way through these difficult issues of property tax reform and the Privacy Act to see if there's even a way that both houses, the House and the Senate, can both agree. So I don't know, Chad. It's really hard to say. I think that because we didn't get an announcement last week, I think the odds of not having a special session at all or having a very narrow one just on this technical sunset issue increased. And so we'll see. My guess is property tax is more likely than Privacy Act, but maybe not one for either one.
Yeah. Interesting. Matt, tell folks how they can sign up for your email and about your podcast as well.
Thanks. Yeah, we send out a morning news email at mustreadtexas.com Monday through Friday every week. You can sign up for free at mustreadtexas.com, and my podcast, Mac on Politics, is available iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and at maconpolitics.com. It's produced with the Washington Times.
All right, Matt, as always, appreciate your time, and we'll visit next week.
Thanks, Chad. Have a great week.
You too. That's Matt Mackowiak. You can follow him on Twitter, Mac on Politics, and at Matt Mackowiak.